And that kind of leads me to, I know that the issue of values is something that that you focus on quite a bit. And I thought to myself, how do you think that your clients' notions of success are tied to their value system?
Well, it's a very, very personal conversation. And if once you meet a family, you can't say that you've seen them all. Like, a family is a family, and that's as far as it goes. We particularly find it in Canada. It's such a melting pot that we come from different backgrounds, different cultures, different financial situations. Lately, less so, but generally speaking, Canada is a place where social mobility is still possible. And there are philanthropic values in there. The majority of the population does care about their neighbor. And when we talk to our clients about their family values and their money conversations, again, it's never about money, it's the impact they can create. So we have, without pegging roles here, it's very common that one of the spouses wants to give everything away and says, well, I don't want to wreck my kids' choices in the future. I want them to have just enough, but not too much. And we define what that is. And then the other spouse says, well, that's all great and dandy. You want to give everything away, but what if something happens and we're destitute? So we just facilitate those conversations, and we figure out that it doesn't need to be complicated. It has to be flexible. It has to work for the family as such. And if harmony is the most important element for the family, which generally speaking it is, we will find a way to do it. We'll never tell people what they should do. We want to find out what it is that they want to do, and then figure out the way to get there. Some people come from a lot of money. Some people come from no money at all. Some people are self-made. Some people are still living paycheck to paycheck. So every reality is different, and it's ultimately figuring out, again, back to the puzzle. What would you like to see? Please rest assured that this cannot be achieved overnight. So yes, we can eat the elephant, but we can't eat it in one bite. It'll be many bites, and starting with the first one. And we can get there as long as there's discipline, there's, commitment, open conversation, obviously confidentiality. But the more we find out from our clients, the better and more detail we can add to their picture and get to their goal faster. And I find that a very cherished value in families is simplicity. And we say that a good financial plan doesn't need to be incomprehensible. Some people go so crazy out there, implementing very complex tax structures that not even they understand. And when you ask the spouse, do you understand what's going on? They have absolutely no clue. So the benefit of any tax sheltering opportunity or any tax planning opportunity is potentially questionable when you realize the complexity and grief that will take to unwind those structures for the spouse. So we talk about things before they happen, and that allows people to think twice before figuring, saying this is what I want to do. All the opinions come to the table, and that's really how we make it happen, right? We try to avoid leaving the Pandora's box unopened for the next generation. So that leads me to ask you, tell me your story about, because that's how you and I started talking, Pandora's box. And there's a Pandora's box in your world, there's a Pandora's box in my world. I think there's a Pandora's box in every world. And you think about it, even in the dentist, you can pretend that your tooth doesn't hurt and never look at it. And then until you're like in dire pain, that's when you look at it. Whereas if you had addressed it earlier on, it would have been a much easier solution. So David, tell me about Pandora's box. What if your client's fear of dealing with whatever is in that box is so strong that it's not worth the pain? What happens here?
So I'm listening to what you said, and a number of things sort of ring true for me as well in terms of what I do. One of which is your analogy of the elephant, and that you can't eat the elephant in one bite. And you know, when people approach the Pandora's box, which is the depository of all of these various issues that terrify them, right? The fear, part of the fear is that they have to tackle the entire thing at once. If they have to jump into the Pandora's box and it's kind of coming at them from all sides. And I think that what you're talking about in terms of eating the elephant in little bites is true for me as well. I look at it in terms of breaking it down into bite-sized chunks, trying to achieve successes in terms of those bite-sized chunks, and then giving the feedback, hopefully, from those successes is, look at what we were able to accomplish on these simple successes, and then trying to build on those successes as we move along. And so it's not that the family doesn't know what these issues are. It's that they found a way, likely by avoiding them, to sort of get along. And at a certain point, the just getting along aspect doesn't work, which is often the signal or the catalyst for you and I to come into the picture, because they've run out of solutions, or because they're just too terrified to take that step, you know. And to me, it's in a way, it's kind of what we're going through when in this COVID epidemic, which is it's a need to adapt and to face the unknown. And with COVID, we don't have the luxury of putting it off for another day. So it's sort of dealing with a what if, which if you had the luxury of sitting back and say, well, you know, the what if is somewhere down the road. Here, the what if is staring you right in the face. So what do you do with it? And I think that if we're looking at the lessons that we can learn from COVID, one of the things that it's scary, but one of the things that we know is that if we're not going to be proactive, if we're not prepared to take bold steps, then we may not survive, right? Your client may not survive. And so I think what you do and what I do is I think we lead people through that field of what ifs. And looking at COVID, we can say to ourselves, if we can find the tools to survive this, a way to deal with this, because we have no choice but to deal with it, then we may be equipping ourselves with the tools that allow us to go back into the Pandora's box and to deal with some of those unresolved issues. And so I'm thinking to myself, Elke, based on your experience with family during the time of COVID, what's changed for you? What's been confirmed for you?
I think it's very funny. It's not that I want to get too out there, but I think last year everybody was running so fast and so hard that I don't know if it was the universe or what it was, that when everybody said we need a break, and we got our break, and now we're all home and we're facing reality, and many of us are seeing, you know, mortality is real. And without getting dark, you know, it's there, and it's a Pandora box that it's a lot easier to handle while you can still talk about it and not leave your family with an absolute disaster behind, right? It happens. It doesn't mean it will happen. It doesn't mean it's going to happen because of COVID. But ultimately, everybody, business owners and individuals, have to think about their own succession. Call it business-wise, call it professional, call who's going to be in command of the family. What happens when you no longer can make decisions? All those conversations need to happen, and they're starting to happen. And COVID has enabled them in a rather accelerated way, and that is crazy, but it's good. People are understanding that we're not, you know, forever, and we want to make sure that the next generation is okay. The other thing too that has happened is people are taking the time to say, okay, now I'm literally, you have my attention. I'm at home. I can't go anywhere. I have all my papers here. Maybe it is time to start talking about the financial plan. Maybe it is time to start talking about, you know, that will that you've been chasing me to get done for so many years. And we say again, we'll get there. There's a bunch of things and steps we need to take, and we will not do the wills for you, but we will work with somebody who can do them for you. And at the same time, we'll work on your tax plan, and we'll talk about your insurance coverage, and we'll talk about your asset management and your risk appetite, and when are you using these funds, and what's your retirement expectation, and what's your legacy play. All those conversations, we spend a lot of time talking about it. So our process hasn't changed. It's just the fact that people now are facing a very real situation, and you know, as long as you watch the news for 5 minutes, you see what's going on, and percentage wise, for sure, it's not that close, but it could happen, right? So people are starting to get organized, and that's fantastic. You have companies, you have the courts now allowing online witnessing of wills. That's huge. And, you know, our job has been educating people and showing them that just because you're 18 and don't own a duck to your name doesn't mean you shouldn't have a will. You know, there's powers of attorney and those things.
And I know that insurance plays an aspect of what you do, and one of the things that I focus on in my practice is I'm trying to get business owners to look at a shareholders agreement as a form of insurance, because it can deal with a bunch of the what ifs: death, disability, divorce, bankruptcy, family law issues. What do we do in any of those circumstances? And to me, it's a sad but real example of the fact that, as you said, you didn't say if these things happen. It's certainly in terms of death, it's when that happens. And one of the exercises perhaps we could take our families through is, if you knew COVID was going to happen, right? Whether it's 2 years down the road, 5, but you don't necessarily know when. How would you do things differently? How would you plan differently? And so now that it's here and you're forced to deal in some way with it, how do you position yourself in a better way, perhaps, going forward? And, you know, to me, one of those things is a financial plan. One of those things is getting into a shareholders arrangement, having properly executed wills and powers of attorney, and that's where I think you and I have a great basis for collaboration, because I think we both recognize that the playing field is the field of keeping the family whole and finding out what their needs are and addressing those. And you're bringing a skill set and an approach to that effort, and I'm doing that as well. And the recognition that neither of us is a silo, right?
Yeah, and working together, the result is just so much better. David, thank you so much. I hope this is the first of many. I hope your family's doing well. We'll catch up soon. I think we have a call next week. But thank you, everyone. And we will post David's contact information below. And let us know what you think. Thank you so much, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you. All the best.